Blood stained the quiet night as a single dad's evening walk turned into a nightmare. His loyal dog tugged him toward a ditch where a police officer lay gasping for air, shot and abandoned. He was a man overlooked by society, a father struggling to raise his child alone, invisible in a world that often judged him for the color of his skin. Yet in that desperate moment, his choices would change everything. What he and his dog did that night not only saved a life, but shook an entire police department to its core. Marcus Carter was a 37-year-old single father raising his 10-year-old daughter, Aaliyah, in a small suburban town where eyes always lingered too long when he walked into stores. As a black man, widowed too young, he carried the quiet weight of whispers: broken home, suspicious, outsider. He worked long shifts as a mechanic, stretching every dollar, and his only reprieve was his evening walks with Duke, his German shepherd. These walks grounded him. The rhythmic sound of Duke's paws, the night breeze against his face, and the sight of his daughter waving from the window before bed, small reminders that he was still standing, still fighting, but life had taught him caution. He knew how quickly things could spiral for someone like him. He taught Aaliyah to always stay polite, never raise her voice, and keep her hands visible in public, lessons no child should need, but ones she couldn't live without. That night, after dinner, Marcus clipped Duke's leash and headed out like usual. The streets were quiet, lit only by distant lamps flickering over cracked sidewalks. But Duke was restless, pulling harder than normal, ears perked. Marcus thought it was a raccoon or maybe a stray cat. He couldn't have guessed that within minutes. His world would collide with danger, blood, and a decision that would define how people remembered his name. Duke pulled him toward the wooded edge near the old highway overpass. The shadows were thick, and Marcus hesitated. This wasn't their usual path. But Duke whined, insistent, tugging him forward. That's when Marcus heard it, a faint moan, fragile and broken, carried on the night air. His stomach tightened. He slowed, scanning the ground with cautious steps. Then he saw her. A woman sprawled in the ditch, her uniform barely visible under the dirt and blood. Her chest rose shallowly, lips trembling as she fought for breath. The glint of her badge caught the moonlight. Officer Kelly Roberts, one of the few female cops in town. Marcus had seen her once at a community event, firm but approachable, the kind of officer people trusted. But now she was unrecognizable, covered in blood. Her side was soaked red where a bullet had torn through her vest. Marcus froze. He thought of every story he'd read, every headline. A black man was found near the injured officer. Suspect in custody. His skin prickled with fear. If anyone saw him here, hovering over a bleeding cop with no witnesses, no one would believe he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. Duke whined again, nudging the officer's limp hand. Marcus's heart pounded. He could turn back, call anonymously, and protect himself and Aaliyah. Nobody would ever know he'd been here. But he couldn't move. He remembered his daughter's face and the values he wanted to teach her. Walking away meant letting a human being die when he had the chance to act. He swallowed hard and knelt beside the officer. "Stay alive," he whispered under his breath, though he knew she couldn't hear him. He ripped off his jacket, pressing it against her wound. Her body flinched with pain, but the bleeding slowed. Marcus felt the warm blood soak through the fabric, searing into his skin like a brand. The night was silent except for her ragged breaths and Duke's anxious pacing. Marcus pulled out his phone, hands trembling. Dialing 911 was like signing his own arrest warrant, but he did it anyway. When the dispatcher answered, he forced his voice steady. "This is Marcus Carter. I found an officer down by the highway overpass. She's alive. Send help!" The operator's pause felt like forever, but she dispatched units immediately. Marcus knew what came next. Sirens, lights, suspicion. But he stayed, applying pressure, refusing to let her slip away. Minutes stretched like hours. He prayed silently, begging in his mind, "Don't die. Don't die here." Then came the roar of engines, flashing red and blue explosions against the trees. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. Their eyes locked on Marcus. A black man crouched over a bleeding cop, his hands crimson with blood. "Hands where we can see them!" they shouted. Marcus raised his arms slowly, jacket still pressed to the officer's wound. He shouted back, voice breaking, "I'm saving her life!" But guns stayed trained on him. The scene erupted in chaos. Officers swarmed, some rushing to Kelly's side, others pinning Marcus to the ground. Duke barked furiously, straining against his leash as Marcus's face pressed into the dirt. He tried to explain, choking on the weight of fear and anger. "She was dying. I called you. I didn't hurt her." But his words were drowned in the frenzy. Rough hands cuffed his wrists, blood smearing across his skin. His mind screamed for Aaliyah. What would happen if he didn't come home? Then, amidst the shouting, one voice rose above the rest. "She's alive! Pressure's holding. She's stable." Heads turned. An EMT glanced at Marcus, then at the officer, confusion spreading. They pieced together the blood-soaked jacket pressed firmly against her wound. Not a weapon, not an attack, a lifeline. The officer leading the arrest hesitated, eyes narrowing at Marcus. Slowly, the cuffs were removed. Marcus sat up, chest heaving, sweat dripping into the dirt. He felt Duke press against his side protectively, growling low at the chaos. Kelly was loaded into the ambulance, her hand twitching faintly as if to hold on. For a fleeting second, Marcus caught her gaze, weak but present. Gratitude flickered in her eyes before they closed again. The sirens wailed, carrying her into the night. Silence lingered. Every cop there knew what they had almost done, what they had almost accused an innocent man of. And yet Marcus stood there, blood-stained, breathing heavily, carrying the weight of suspicion that might never fully leave. News spread quickly. "Single father saves police officer's life," the headlines read. But between the lines lay another truth, the hesitation, the guns drawn, the instant suspicion. Marcus returned home shaken, greeted by Aaliyah's tearful hug. He told her what happened, leaving out the fear of nearly being arrested. But the story traveled beyond their home. Officer Roberts survived because of him. Days later, she requested to meet Marcus personally. When she stood before him, pale but recovering, she clasped his hand and said words he never expected. "You didn't just save me. You reminded this department of what trust really looks like." The police force honored him publicly, though Marcus felt the applause carried a shadow of guilt. He hadn't acted for recognition. He had acted because it was right, but the deeper impact was personal. For Aaliyah, her father's bravery became a lesson stronger than any lecture, that doing the right thing often comes with risk. But integrity is worth it. For the community, the story sparked uncomfortable conversations. Why was Marcus nearly treated like a criminal when he was the one saving a life? How many others had faced worse without witnesses or outcomes like this? The answer was a truth too many already knew. Marcus's story wasn't just about saving a cop. It was about survival in a world that judged him before he spoke, and about courage that rose above fear. As he walked Duke the next evening, the night felt different. Not safer, not freer, but heavier with the knowledge that every step he took mattered. And for those who heard his story, one question lingered. In a world so quick to judge, how many heroes have we overlooked simply because of the color of their skin?